My fiancé had another man's baby weeks before our wedding, so I stayed calm and made a new plan without saying anything. I'm a 31-year-old man who owns a custom motorcycle shop in Austin. My shop has done very well since I opened it 3 years ago. The shop makes over $100,000 each year and was shown in Bike Week magazines. I lost my engineering job, used my final pay to rent an old garage, and made it into my business. The first year was very hard, but now famous people come to me for custom bikes. My shop has a rough, factory-like feel that some women like and others don't like. It has bare brick walls, old signs, rock music playing, and always smells like oil and metal. I have 2 full-time workers who fix bikes. Both men know their job well and don't cause problems. Andrew knows a lot about old Harley bikes, and Ali is a younger man who is very good with fast sport bikes. 2.5 years ago, I was at a money-raising event for hurt soldiers when a very pretty woman came to my table. This was Susan, a 27-year-old woman who works telling people about a tech company in the city. She has blonde hair, is in good shape, drives a BMW her dad bought for her, and went to college paid for by her dad. You know what I mean. The event was in a nice hotel room where everyone dressed up and tried to pay more than others for golf games and fancy meals. I paid for a table because my shop was making good money and I thought it would help me meet new people. Also, I wanted to help soldiers because my dad was in the army and I respect people who serve our country. Susan came in wearing a small black dress, looked around the room, and saw me in my nice suit. Yes, I can look good when I need to. She came over to talk to me. I'll be honest, she was much better looking than me, but I had something she wanted. Also, my shop was getting attention, and she liked people seeing her with the motorcycle guy at her work events. My best friend, Daniel, was there that night watching me talk to her. He's 32 years old and works managing building projects. He's very strong, but also very funny. He's very good at knowing what people are really like, which is sometimes scary. He told me, "Man, that woman is not being honest with you." I should have listened to him right away. But Susan was good-looking, seemed to like my job instead of thinking it was bad, and didn't mind getting dirty when she visited my shop, at least at the beginning. When we first started dating, things went well. She would come to my shop after work, bring food from a popular place in town, and watch me fix bikes. She asked good questions and really seemed to care about the work I did. She even helped me shine the metal on an old Harley bike I was fixing. My dad's reaction when I first introduced her was typical. My dad is 65 years old and used to fix planes for the Air Force. He always says exactly what he thinks, even if you don't want to hear it, and he's usually right, which makes it harder to hear. He said, "She's pretty, son, but be careful. Women like her like expensive things and expect a lot. Make sure she likes you for who you are." After dating for a while, 10 months ago, I asked her to marry me. I spent $8,000 on a ring she kept talking about wanting. We planned to get married in 1 month. Shopping for the ring was a learning experience. I spent 3 weekends going to every jewelry store in Austin, while Susan told me about how rings should look and sparkle like she was an expert. She had pictures of her friends' rings on her phone to compare, which should have warned me something was wrong, but I was making good money and thought if I was going to buy a ring, I should buy a good one. My dad's reaction to the ring's cost was funny. $8,000. Son, I bought your mother's ring for $300 in 1987, and she still wears it 35 years later. Your mother cried when I gave it to her, not because of how big it was, but because it meant I loved her. But here's something strange. In the 2.5 years we dated, Susan never once talked about best friend named Chad. Yes, that's really his name from college. Believe me, Susan talks about everyone and everything. I know about her yoga teacher's divorce, her work friend's dating life, and even her haircutter's family problems. She has opinions about people I've never met and probably will never meet. But Chad never came up. For someone who talks about all her friends, this was very suspicious. 2 months ago, she told me that her friend Chad from college was moving to Austin for a job. After 2.5 years of dating, I was just hearing about him? Something didn't make sense. Chad came to town and I could tell right away what kind of guy he was. He's 29 years old, tall, and looks like a model. He works for a company called McKinsey, drives a new, expensive Porsche car, and probably spends more money on his face and nails than most men spend on clothes. McKinsey is a company that gets paid millions to tell businesses things they already know. Chad acts like a typical consultant, using fancy words, talking about important clients, and acting like he made big companies successful. But it wasn't just how he looked that worried me. It was how Susan acted around him. I've seen her excited before, but this was different. She hugged him at the airport, jumping up and down like a young girl meeting a famous person. The way she introduced us to each other was even worse. She acted like she was introducing someone who works for her, while Chad gave me a weak handshake and immediately started talking to Susan as if I wasn't there. Then he took out his phone, showed her pictures, and talked about a private joke about a trip they took, completely ignoring me. The photos from their trip were especially upsetting. Chad showed pictures of him and Susan on a beach, looking like they were in a fancy ad. She was wearing a very small swimsuit, and he had no shirt on, showing off his muscles. In every picture, they posed like a couple. "Remember when we went parasailing?" Chad asked, showing her a picture of them together in the air. "Oh my God, yes! That was amazing!" Susan almost shouted, getting close to him to see better. I stood there wondering why my future wife never told me about going parasailing with this guy, or that she even had photos of it. Daniel was with me. He drove me to the airport because my truck was getting new tires, and he gave me a look that said, "Man, are you seeing this?" His face expressions say more than TV shows. He can make fun of someone just by moving his eyebrows. I tried to act like it was okay. Maybe they were just talking about old times, right? But after 45 minutes of being ignored while my future wife laughed at another man's stories, I had enough. When I tried to talk to Chad about his job, he bragged about making more than $500,000 a year and staying at expensive hotels paid for by his company. "McKinsey really treats us well," Chad said, fixing his expensive watch. "We fly first class, stay at 5-star hotels, and have unlimited money to spend. It's great." Before I could talk about my own business success, Susan spoke up and offered him our guest room in my house. The house I bought and pay for. The house I've been working hard to pay off early so we could start our marriage without debt. When I said no, pointing out that he seemed more like someone who would stay at fancy hotels, she stopped me. "Honey, it's okay. He's an old friend." An old friend I never heard about until 2 months ago? On the way home, Daniel started making jokes. "That guy is as loyal as a rented car. Also, he was looking at the woman who serves drinks while your girlfriend was talking to him." I didn't see him looking at the bartender, but Daniel sees everything. So, Chad moved into my guest room for a while. He acted like he owned the place, using my gym equipment, eating my food, and even moving my living room furniture because he said it wasn't good for talking. I turned my garage into a gym with weights, a squat rack, a punching bag, and everything else. It took me 2 years to buy all the pieces. Chad used it like it was his, never cleaning up, leaving his drink bottles in the sink, and changing all the equipment settings. But moving my furniture was too much for me. I came home one day and found my living room changed. My leather couch was moved to face the kitchen instead of the TV. My coffee table was replaced with a modern art piece Susan bought, and my old Harley posters were taken down because she said abstract paintings were better. "What is going on, Susan? Who told your friend he could move my things?" I asked. "Oh my God, be quiet, Blake," Susan said angrily. "He's used to nicer things." "Nice things in my house? Then he should get his own place." She didn't like what I said and immediately started defending him. I watched Susan change. Suddenly, nothing I did was good enough. My house wasn't nice enough for Chad, my drinks weren't good enough, and I needed to dress better because Chad was used to expensive things. She wanted me to change myself to impress this good-looking man who was living for free. Susan even started buying my clothes, bringing bags from an expensive store full of fancy shirts and pants that looked like what Chad wears. I told her I had my own style, but she said I needed to dress better for our friends. Our friends? Since when did we have friends that required me to dress better? They always had private jokes, stories about college, trips they took, and talked about people I'd never heard of. I sat in my own living room feeling like a stranger while they talked about their fun college days. When I tried to join the conversation, Susan would stop me, saying I wouldn't understand because my college experience was different. Yes, I'm sorry I didn't go to the expensive University of Texas and spend my dad's money on trips. I was building my business instead of partying through my 20s. Their college stories were always about parties, expensive trips, and situations that sounded more like they were dating than just friends. For example, Chad took Susan to fancy dances when she couldn't find another date. Daniel came over one night and saw how they acted. After Chad and Susan went for their nightly walk to talk, Daniel told me what he thought. "Man, I've seen some sad things, but watching you get pushed around in your own house is the worst. What is happening here? Tell him to leave." Every night after dinner, Chad and Susan would take long walks around the area, just the two of them talking, while I cleaned up or worked on bikes in the garage. Things got worse when my dad came over the next weekend for our usual Sunday visit and saw Chad for the first time. My dad and I have a tradition. Every other Sunday, he comes over and we cook steaks and work on projects I'm doing. These Sundays are very important to me. My dad walked into my living room, saw Chad lying on my couch in his expensive workout clothes, eating my food while Susan took care of him like he was a king, and just stared. No one spoke for about 30 seconds. Then my dad asked, "Who's this guy who looks like a doll?" Chad tried to introduce himself with his fake nice way, talking about his exciting job and how thankful he was to stay with us. My dad just nodded politely and walked away. That's how I know my dad doesn't like someone. He becomes very polite. We went outside and my dad told me what he thought right away. "That boy isn't looking for his own place. He's already found one, your house. And your girl is acting like she already lives with him. I've been married for 35 years. I know what friends look like, and that's not it. That boy wants your woman, and she's letting him have her." Things got really bad when Chad started making decisions about our wedding. This guy had opinions about everything: the music, the flowers, the food, and even the gifts for the men in the wedding. And Susan loved it. She kept talking about Chad's great taste and how he knew what she liked better than anyone, even better than me, the man she was going to marry in a month. The music was especially annoying. Susan and I had already chosen songs we liked, a mix of rock and country music that showed who we are, but Chad thought our music choices were too simple and not good enough for the place we were getting married. He spent hours making a new list of music full of jazz and other songs that no one would dance to. "Trust me, this will create the perfect mood," Chad explained, looking through his music account on my computer. "Your guests will like the better music choices." The final straw came when we went to taste wedding cakes. Chad had to come because he understood Susan's fancy taste in food. Susan had never mentioned having fancy taste in food in the 2.5 years we dated. She ate pizza, burgers, tacos, and normal food. But suddenly, she had this fancy taste that needed Chad's expert opinion. When we finally chose a cake, it was the one Chad wanted. Susan looked at him with love and said, "You always know exactly what I want." She asked Chad to approve our wedding cake. This guy, who had only been in town for a few weeks, somehow knew what my future wife wanted better than I did after 2.5 years. When I asked why his opinion was more important than mine, Susan said I was not confident. "Chad just has very good taste," she said. "He knows what works for events like this." Our wedding was now just an event that needed Chad's knowledge to be done right. When I told Daniel about the cake situation, he almost spit out his drink. The doll asked Mr. Consultant to approve your wedding cake? Man, she's not really going to marry you. She's keeping you waiting while she decides if Chad will commit to her. That was when everything fell apart. Last week, I was working late in my garage fixing an engine for a custom Harley when I heard them talking on the back porch. They thought I couldn't hear them because of the music, but I have good hearing from years of listening to engine sounds. The bike was a 1977 Harley that a customer wanted me to fix to look like it did when it was new. It was a beautiful bike, but the engine was broken. I had been working on it for weeks, staying late to make sure everything worked perfectly. The work was calming, taking apart something complicated and putting it back together better than before. I had rock music playing, not too loud so I could focus, but loud enough to enjoy. The garage door was open, and that's when I heard them. "Susan, are you sure you want to get married?" Chad asked. The question made me stop. I turned off my tool and listened. "Blake is a good man," Susan said, but her voice sounded unsure, like she was trying to make herself believe it. Good men finish last, Susan. You deserve someone who is as smart as you, who wants the same things as you, who comes from the same kind of background as you. There it was. Chad had been hinting at this for 6 weeks. I wasn't good enough for Susan's social group, not smart enough, not driven enough, not from the right kind of family. It's complicated, she said. I could hear she wasn't sure. It doesn't have to be complicated. You know we've always had feelings for each other. For 6 years of being friends, this fancy, controlling man had always wanted her. He had been planning for a long time, making himself seem like the better choice while hurting my relationship with Susan. Think about what we could have together, what we've been working toward for years. For 6 years, while she dated other people, while I fell in love with her, Chad had been waiting and planning for this moment. I turned off the music and went inside, but I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I called Daniel right away. Finally, he said, I was wondering when Mr. Steeler would show who he really is. What did you hear? I told him everything, exactly as I heard it. Man, that guy just told you exactly what he's been planning. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Well, that's when things got interesting. That afternoon, I decided to make something happen. I told Susan it was time for Chad to find his own place. We needed to focus on ourselves with the wedding only 3 weeks away. Chad needs to find his own place, I said when Susan came home from work. The wedding is in 3 weeks and we need to focus on us. Her reaction was immediate and explosive. She called me selfish for wanting Chad to leave when he was trying to settle in a new city. When I said he made a lot of money and could pay for his own place, she said she would postpone the wedding if I was going to be jealous and controlling. He's my oldest friend, Blake. How can you be so mean? There it was. She would postpone our wedding because I wanted her friend to live my house? You would postpone our wedding for Chad? I asked. I would postpone our wedding because you're acting crazy and controlling. Crazy for not wanting another man to live in my house? For wanting my future wife to make our relationship important? So I asked her directly, if you had to choose between me and Chad right now, today, who would you choose? She stared at me for a long time. The silence lasted so long that it was an answer by itself. I could see her thinking, trying to find a way to keep both of us. That's a silly question. It's a simple question. If you had to choose right now, who would you pick? Another long pause. I watched her face and saw when she realized there was no good answer, no way to hide the truth. Chad has been in my life longer, she said. 6 years versus 2.5 years, Chad wins. Her answer hurt me like a punch, but it also made everything clear. She had made her choice. She had been making it for 6 weeks, maybe even longer. I was just the last person to find out. I called Daniel right after she angrily left the house. She chose him. Man, of course she did, he said. The princess wants her prince, not the mechanic. I spent that day making phone calls. I called my lawyer first to understand my legal rights. In Texas, engagement rings are gifts with conditions. If the wedding is canceled, I get the ring back no matter who ended the relationship. Good to know. I called the place where we were getting married, the food company, the music group, and the picture taker, and canceled everything. I lost some money I had already paid, but I saved myself from a much bigger mistake. The person in charge of the wedding place was understanding. It seems that weddings get canceled more often than you would think. It's better to lose some money than to pay for a whole wedding with the wrong person. The food company was not as understanding. I lost $5,000 because they had already bought special food. The photographer was nice about it and offered to take pictures of my bikes instead, which sounded great. Then I called my friends, Daniel, my brother Liam, Andrew from the shop, and my cousin Rick, who works in security. I told them to come over that night. I needed people to see what would happen next. Liam drove from Dallas. He's 2 years older than me and has no patience for drama. Andrew closed the shop early and brought drinks. Rick came in his security clothes, looking ready for a problem. Daniel arrived first, carrying a box of energy drinks and smiling widely. This is going to be better than a TV fight. Are you finally going to be brave and throw these people who live for free out of your house? When Susan and Chad came back from dinner, another meal I wasn't invited to, another decision they made without asking me, I was waiting in the living room with my friends and some papers. The looks on their faces when they walked in were amazing. Chad turned white. Susan turned red. "Blake, we need to talk about this morning," Susan started, but I stopped her. "Actually, we don't. Chad, you have until tomorrow morning to get your things out of my house." "What?" Susan's voice got high, which means she's angry. "And Susan, here's a paper telling you that you have 30 days to move out too." She looked at the eviction papers like they were in a different language, then at me, then at my 4 friends sitting there like judges. When she saw I was serious, she became very angry. Everything happened as you would expect. She said I couldn't take back the engagement ring. I explained the Texas law about gifts with conditions. Chad tried to make peace until Rick offered to help him find his room. Rick has a way of standing that makes people nervous. He's 6 feet 4 inches tall, 250 pounds of muscle, and has 20 years of experience dealing with real problems. Chad took one look at him and decided it was better to cooperate. Susan tried to argue that men and women can just be friends and that I was being unreasonable and controlling, but the facts were clear. She had chosen Chad over me, threatened to postpone our wedding for him, and listened to his advice about everything from flowers to furniture. "Susan, give me back the ring." She threw the ring at me. I caught it in the air. All those years fixing engines helped me catch it. "Fine, take your stupid ring, but don't come back when you realize what you lost." "I know exactly what I'm avoiding," I replied. Daniel couldn't help himself. "I'll give it a week. I bet they will post pictures of them as a couple by Friday." The next morning, Chad was gone. He packed his expensive bags and skincare products and went back to his fancy hotel. Susan spent the day crying and putting her things in boxes while my friends made sure she didn't break anything on her way out. Andrew and Allie helped her put her things in a rental truck. By noon, my phone was ringing a lot. Her parents, her sister, her friends in the wedding, and even some people from her work. Everyone had something to say about how terrible I was for embarrassing Susan. Her mother called first, yelling about how I had embarrassed their family and ruined her daughter's happiness. When I tried to explain that Susan had chosen Chad over me, she hung up. Her father called an hour later, calmer but still angry. "Sir, I didn't embarrass anyone," I said. "I just decided not to marry someone who doesn't want to marry me." My dad was sitting with me during most of these calls, shaking his head and sometimes saying, "That woman has a lot of nerve," or "These people are crazy." He added, "When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time." "Your girl showed you exactly who she was. Good thing you were paying attention." Her friends in the wedding sent group messages calling me controlling and manipulative, saying I couldn't handle Susan having male friends. According to them, I was the problem for not trusting Susan's friendship with Chad. Male friends? Friends don't live in your house, move your furniture, and tell you that you deserve better than your future husband. Meanwhile, Susan was posting on social media about bad male behavior and insecure men who can't handle strong women, making herself look like the victim. Her story was that I had thrown her out for having a friend, that I was insecure and controlling. The comments were divided between her college friends supporting her story and people who knew what really happened, telling the truth. A few friends we both knew contacted me privately to ask what really happened. Daniel was having fun with her social media posts. "Look at this one. Sometimes you have to cut toxic people out of your life. Yeah, good thing you cut yourself out of his life, dear, just 5 days after moving out." Guess where Susan went to live? Chad's new downtown apartment. What a surprise. Chad had found a furnished apartment in one of those expensive tall buildings downtown, and Susan moved in right away as his temporary roommate while she decided what to do next. Their social media posts told the whole story as it happened. Suddenly, they were posting pictures together all the time with words about getting through hard times with real friends and being thankful for people who truly support them. The pictures looked more and more like a couple while they pretended to be just friends. At first, the pictures were innocent, but the way they stood close in every picture told a different story. Daniel kept sending me the pictures because he thought I would be angry, but honestly, I felt relieved. Watching their little act just showed me I had made the right decision. Look at this note with the picture. So grateful for friends who really understand me. Yeah, friends who understand you need to sleep together, Daniel joked. My dad's opinion was simpler. Son, actions don't lie. Those two are together now, probably were before, and you're better off without either of them. 3 weeks later, on the day that would have been my wedding, I was at the gym when I met Julia. She's a physical therapist who owns her own business and doesn't get upset when someone disagrees with her. I had been going to the gym a lot since the breakup, partly to relieve stress and partly because I had more free time now that I wasn't planning a wedding. Julia was lifting weights at the rack next to mine. She had perfect form and was lifting more weight than most men in the gym. When she saw me watching how she was lifting, she smiled and asked, "Are you checking my form or just being creepy?" "I'm checking your form," I replied. "Most people lift with their back instead of their legs." "You actually know what you're doing." We got coffee after the gym, and she asked what I do for work. When I told her about the motorcycle shop, her eyes got bright. "That's so cool. Is it true that Harley bikes are harder to ride than sport bikes?" She wasn't ashamed of my blue-collar work. She was truly interested and respectful. When I offered to teach her how to ride a motorcycle, she was excited to try. Julia is different from Susan in all the important ways. She has her own money, her own business, and her own goals. She doesn't need anyone to take care of her or tell her that her choices are good. When we go out to eat, she wants to split the bill until I convince her to let me pay. We weren't officially dating. I wasn't starting another relationship so quickly, but we enjoyed spending time together as friends for now. When Julia met Daniel and my dad a month later, Daniel immediately liked her. "Man, she looks at you like you're the only man in the room, not like she's looking for a husband." "Daniel, we're not dating yet," I said. "Shut up, man. You're making it seem complicated." My dad's approval was even better. "Son, this one is special. I can tell." 4 months after the breakup, I was at my shop working on a custom bike when my phone rang. I didn't know the number, but I answered because customers sometimes call from different phones. "Blake, it's me," Susan said, crying a lot. My first thought was to hang up. We had nothing to talk about, but something in her voice made me stay on the phone. "How did you get this number? Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." She had gotten my number from Andrew, it seemed. She went to the shop crying and convinced him to give her my personal phone number because she said it was an emergency. It turned out she had made a terrible mistake and wanted me back. The big news was that she was pregnant, Chad had left, and she had nothing. He had used her, told her he loved her, made her break up with me, and then left as soon as she told him about the baby. "Sounds like you chose the wrong man," I said. "I chose wrong. You were the right man. You're stable, reliable, good, and not from the same social class as me. I remember. Blake, please, I have nothing. Chad moved back to Denver without telling anyone. My parents are very angry with me. I can't pay for my apartment by myself." It seems his company offered to move him to Denver, and he took the job right away. He didn't tell Susan. He didn't talk about it with her. He just told her 2 days before he left. "Call your friends. They had a lot to say about what a great man you were. They're not talking to me either. They think I'm stupid for leaving you for Chad." Finally, something we agree on. She begged me to give her another chance, offering to go to counseling, sign any papers I wanted, anything. "I do love you. I realized it when I lost you." "You realized it when you got pregnant and were left by your Prince Charming." I hung up and blocked her number, but she didn't stop trying. She started coming to my shop crying in the parking area about how sorry she was. This was bad for business and even worse for my peace of mind. The first time, I ignored her. The second time, I had Andrew tell her she wasn't welcome. The third time, I started taking pictures of her. That's when I asked the court for an order to keep her away from me. The look on her face when the police officer gave her the paper ordering her to stay away was amazing. She was completely shocked that her actions had consequences. She seemed surprised that showing up at someone's workplace over and over after being told to leave is against the law. 6 months later, I was at a motorcycle event in Sturgis with Julia when my phone made a sound. I received a text from an unknown number with a picture. It was Susan, clearly pregnant, working behind the counter at a chain restaurant. The message said, "Thought you'd want to see how your ex is doing. What goes around comes around." It was probably one of her former wedding friends who stopped liking her after the Chad situation became known. Susan had ruined many relationships with her choices. But honestly, looking at that picture didn't make me happy. It just showed me that I had avoided a huge problem. Susan looked unhappy, tired, and swollen, wearing a cheap uniform, dealing with whatever customers say to restaurant workers. Julia saw the text and just shrugged. That's too bad for her, but that's what happens when you ruin your life for the wrong man. No drama, no jealousy, no need to talk about Susan's situation or compare herself to Susan. Chad never came back to Austin. I heard from people we both know that he was moved to his company's London office right after moving to Denver. They probably sent him to another country to avoid problems from what happened in Austin. Big consulting companies don't like personal scandals hurting their reputation. Susan's parents stopped helping her completely after everyone found out what happened. They were more embarrassed about their daughter's bad choices than worried about her well-being. This is what happens with rich people when how they look to others is more important than family. Susan stopped posting on social media after the restaurant pictures started spreading. No more posts about bad male behavior, just silence, and probably a lot of regret. The last I heard, she was living in an apartment on the south side of town, working 2 jobs to save money for the baby. The BMW was taken back because she couldn't pay for it, the expensive clothes were sold, and she canceled her membership to the country club. Meanwhile, Julia and I were officially dating. She moved into my house, loves the shop, gets along with my workers, and thinks custom motorcycles are really cool. She's already talking about turning part of the garage into a work area where she can fix old furniture. My dad is very happy about Julia too. This one thinks clearly and knows what's important. She makes you better without trying to change you. I'm happy for you, son. What can I say? Sometimes bad people remove themselves from your life. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't think you should build a life with someone who still acts like they're on vacation with their friend. If that makes me insecure, I'd rather be insecure than stupid. 2 months after the court order to keep Susan away, I was delivering a custom Ducati motorcycle to a technology manager in Westlake Hills. It was a beautiful bike, a 2018 Panigale V4 with special paint, better suspension, and a full exhaust system. The man paid with cash, without asking any questions. While going through the delivery checklist, he mentioned flying to London for meetings with McKinsey consultants. A bunch of stuck-up young people who think they know everything about business because they went to expensive schools. Then he said a name that made me listen carefully. There's this one jerk, Chad Morrison. He acts like he invented consulting. That guy has probably never built anything real in his life. There you are, Mr. Fancy Face. It turned out Chad was just as arrogant and useless in London as he had been in Austin. The man is supposedly some big shot, but every suggestion he makes costs us money without making anything better. A typical consultant, good at talking, bad at doing actual work. I looked him up on LinkedIn after I got home. Chad was posting constantly about his exciting time in London and his commitment to being excellent. Meanwhile, his Instagram showed him partying in clubs and dating British women while Susan was working 2 jobs pregnant with his baby. The difference was clear. Chad was having fun in expensive London clubs while the mother of his child was serving food to pay her rent. Even for a jerk consultant, that was very cruel. Chad thought London was a new beginning. I just gave "what goes around comes around" his new address. I wrote a very professional email to McKinsey's London Human Resources Department explaining how their consultant left a pregnant woman in Austin after making her break off her engagement. I included pictures of him partying in London while she worked at a restaurant to survive, and mentioned how this might not match their company's values of integrity and responsibility. The email was professional but direct, letting them decide for themselves if they wanted someone like Chad representing their company. But that wasn't enough. I found Chad's parents through social media, William and Nicole Morrison, a wealthy Dallas real estate family who care more about their reputation than anything else. I found his mother's college roommate, Martha, on Facebook. She volunteers at a center for pregnant women in Austin, helping single mothers get help and support. It's funny how I happened to meet her at the farmer's market and mentioned knowing a single mother named Susan who was struggling after being abandoned by a rich Dallas man named Chad Morrison. Martha was shocked. Nicole Morrison's son? Oh my goodness, she would be so embarrassed. She's always talking about Chad's success and good character. She has no idea what he really did. 3 weeks later, my client called about ordering another bike. Hey, remember that Chad guy from McKinsey? He was taken out of London and moved back to Dallas. Some human resources problem and family pressure. He looked miserable during our video call. Chad's Instagram told the whole story. The London party pictures stopped completely. The fancy restaurant pictures disappeared. And one sad post from a plain Dallas office building said, "Excited for new opportunities back home." The comments were harsh. His London friends asked what happened. Dallas family friends posted fake nice messages. Someone tagged Susan, asking if this was her baby's father, which made people put the story together. It turned out Martha didn't just call Chad's mom. She organized a meeting of wealthy Dallas women, getting all her friends involved and making it a community problem. Nicole was so embarrassed that she brought Chad back to Dallas immediately. She made him quit McKinsey, forced him to work for his father's real estate company for much less money than he made as a consultant, and most importantly, made him set up a trust fund for Susan and the baby to avoid more embarrassment. The trust fund was the best part. Chad went from making over $500,000 as a consultant to working for his parents with strict rules, paying money every month to the woman he abandoned, all because his mother was embarrassed by what he did. So now, Chad is stuck in Dallas, working for his parents, paying for the child he tried to abandon, and his consulting career is over. Susan is getting monthly payments that are probably more than what she made at the restaurant. She also gets health insurance through the trust fund. I didn't use any tools or get into a fight. I just let what goes around comes around work through social media and wealthy women. And remember everyone, if she ever tells you he's just a friend, smile, agree, and start keeping proof. Goodbye.